Most difficult day, because the first day we come with a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of energy, and on the second day we realized that we were more tired than we thought when we came, and so it's easy to get drowsy or for the mind to invade, but don't worry about it. Just keep practicing and things will change. As Fu Ho said yesterday, we are all here for the same reason: to awaken, to have a personal experience of the same truth, the same life that the Buddha had, and to be able to live life as the Buddha did from that same truth. We could say that we're all here because of dukkha. Dukkha is usually translated as suffering, but that's a strong word for people living the privileges of the richest nation in the world. A more apt translation is friction. The sense that so many things, events and people, rub us the wrong way. Or if dukkha is translated as dissatisfaction, we're here because we experience a pervasive dissatisfaction, maybe only at a subtle level, but a persistent level. But more than that feeling of being repelled by dukkha, we're called by an inner sense that there is the potential to set things right. Perhaps we've seen someone who seems to live life with more ease, who sees difficulty as opportunity, who can grieve but also laugh at what appears to be tragedy, who is at ease with death, and who takes their constructed, conditioned life lightly. Or perhaps we've read a passage in a book that opened our mind to a different possibility. One of our early ordained who was tortured in his life before he came to practice, came to train here at the monastery after reading in a book the phrase, "You are not your mind." This struck him like lightning. The Buddha was compelled to live and leave a life of luxury when he saw for the first time an old person, a sick person, a dead person. But more than just seeing them, he must have had a full-body gut punch when he realized that this was the life for every person, no exceptions. Then he saw someone who seemed undisturbed by aging and sickness and death, a monk. And the Buddha, like all of us, was moved to investigate for himself whether there was a cause, and therefore a way to end suffering, a remedy. We've all tried a variety of over-the-counter remedies for our internal friction with how things are. Maybe hours being entertained by social media, cat or dog videos, violent movies, alcohol, drugs, prescription or not, skydiving, vacations on beautiful beaches, listening to 100 podcasts by, quote, enlightened people, buying something new, a car or an iPad or shoes or a jacket, or even a new partner. And we come to realize that the truth is spelled out on the back of the bottles of Advil. It says, for temporary relief of suffering. No, it says, for temporary relief of symptoms. Translate suffering. If this condition persists, consult a doctor. So we consult the great physician, the Buddha. And we learn that the feeling of fundamental unsatisfactoriness is actually a call from inside of us, a call from our original nature, our inherent enlightened nature calling to us. It's here, beneath everything, permeating everything. It always has been. It always will be. You just have to do the work of uncovering it. And that is why we are all here. We've all been called to this work, this excavation work. At first we might think, as our teacher Shoto Harada Roshi did, that one or two sesshin, there'd be a big, big breakthrough, and then I can go back to living an enlightened life, in which, of course, will be generously loved and radiate love, eminently successful, and never die. But this excavation work is a lifetime endeavor, more like a many lifetimes unfolding endeavor. The Buddha said it took him many lifetimes. Even the current Buddha, the Buddha for this eon on this earth, studied for years with his teachers, sat for years, until the mysterious pivot turned, and he saw the silent illumination of the morning star. And his silent mind became illumination. And he exclaimed, "O house builder, you will not build this house again." Hearing that, we have to ponder, what is that house that each person ceaselessly builds and lives in and is imprisoned by? When we're able to sit for hours and our attention is directed towards investigating, who am I? Or better, what am I? We can see that what I call myself is just a collection of momentary sensations. Touch, warmth and coolness, sounds, sights, smells, tastes. A collection of momentary sensations and thoughts, transient thoughts, which are also a mixture of sensations. If you pay attention to thoughts, they have the ingredients of sound. You hear your thoughts. You seem to hear your thoughts. Touch. Some thoughts are light and some are heavier. And an ingredient of sight, if you think in pictures. Not everyone does. But if you think in pictures. We do dream in pictures, usually. So what we call a self is a constant flux, is impermanence itself. A constant flux of sensations and a mixture of sensations that we call thoughts. But don't take this as truth just because this old lady monk said it. Investigate this for yourself. Sensations and thoughts glued together to form a self. But then the question arises, glued together by what? Look into this carefully. Glued together by what? This is how you work on the koan, who am I? Or what am I? Or the kungan, what? Yesterday, Puho read from Basui some lovely passages. Should you question yourself in this way with profound absorption, never slackening the intensity of your effort, your rational mind eventually will exhaust itself, and only questioning at the deepest level will remain. Only questioning at the deepest level will remain. Finally, you will lose awareness of your own body. Your long-held conceptions and notions will perish. After absolute questioning, in the way that every drop of water vanishes from a tub broken open at the bottom, and perfect enlightenment will follow like flowers suddenly blooming on withered trees. With such realization, you achieve true emancipation. But even then, repeatedly cast off what has been realized, turning back to the subject that realizes, that is, to the root, to the bottom, and resolutely go on. Your self and nature will then grow brighter. Basui also says to realize your own mind, you must first of all look into the source from which thoughts flow. Standing and working, standing and sitting, profoundly ask yourself, what is this mind? With an intense yearning to resolve this question. This is called training. This is called practice. This is called desire for truth or thirst for realization. It is better to search your own mind devotedly than to read and recite innumerable sutras and dharani every day for countless years. So we glue together sensations that appear and disappear, thoughts that appear and disappear, and we call them a self. And we're not the only thing that appears. Humans of all varieties, cats and rabbits, persimmons and trees, and beetles and chipmunks and the coronavirus and antibiotics. If we are nothing but sensations and thoughts and glue, then we have to ask, where do all these manifestations come from? What do they return to? This is exactly our work on the cushion. When our mind is quiet, we can begin to see how this happens. As the days of Sesshin pass, if our effort to shine the light within continues, we can have intervals of pure awareness, pure consciousness, without a person who is aware. We can watch consciousness manifesting through cause and effect as activity and form. Consciousness, activity, and form. For this lifetime, the manifestation produced by eons of karmic chains is you as a human being. If the origin of everything is the same, how do we emerge into this world as different? How many different manifestations just in this room? How many different manifestations in the floorboards? In the forest, in the universe. We become different through the infinite chains of cause and effect. Where on earth we were born, into what tribe or nation or religion, how much melanin was incorporated into our skin and hair, whether our genitalia stuck in or out, how much prejudice or anger or incompetence there was in our upbringing, how our parents or our community or our teachers saw us and didn't see us and reflected that seeing back to us. Whether our environment contained music or art or dancing or sports or wealth or luxury or poverty or unending work on a farm or in a coal mine or in a factory. We all emerge from the One. Every manifestation is a manifestation of the One, differing only by karma. So if someone dukkha's you, that's a new verb. If someone dukkha's you, frictions you, dissatisfies you, can you see them as emerging from the same One as you, and becoming how they are simply through a chain of karma that was different from yours? If we can see that, we can also see that in this practice, we have the possibility of changing that chain of karma. For example, the Buddha taught substitution. Some people think that's cheating. That's inauthentic. But the Buddha said, we can substitute loving kindness for anger. And we have a practice to help us do that. When we make that change, it can create a profound difference in our life and in the lives of others. Once I was talking, this is years ago when I first began teaching, and I was contemplating this idea of a small change. And I was talking to someone who had been in recovery for many years. And he said, yes, what we teach is, if you're headed this way, and you correct by just even a couple of degrees, in 10 years you end up in a completely different place. Because this adjustment ends up in a completely different place. So that's true of our practice all the time. What is it that prevents us from perceiving and then living in this original self, in this other half of who we are? It's not a half because it's continually present. If Dharma gates are boundless, what keeps the gate closed? And keeps on reinforcing this seemingly impenetrable wall. In the old days, they talked about practicing as if you were beating your head on an iron mountain or swallowing a hot iron ball. But it does seem impenetrable at times. What is it that keeps us imprisoned for life, believing in a self that is small, isolated, inadequate, finite, and suffering? What are the consequences of living within the illusion of a self that is small, isolated, inadequate, and suffering? Small and therefore vulnerable, separate and therefore isolated and lonely. Inadequate and therefore striving for success. Suffering and therefore constricted and fearful. Finite and therefore afraid of death. What is the barrier that prevents us from breaking through to the other shore? We call it the other shore, but it's right here. What is it that prevents us from breaking through the experience of small to the experience of infinite? Breaking through the experience of isolated and lonely to the experience of bathing in the family of all creations. bathing in the silent illumination that each creation offers, the beauty that abounds. The barrier is woven of thoughts. If you watch your thoughts and the emotions that arise from thoughts, you will find that this is the perpetually active house builder. Thoughts about yourself in the past, thoughts about yourself in the future, thoughts sad, angry, happy, hurt, loving, jealous, anxious, fantasies, tragedies. But we have to investigate this for ourselves. What percentage of thoughts are about yourself? It's an interesting investigation. Just let go of those, and you will have a remarkably quiet heart-mind. When we do concentration practice, we are substituting breath or sound or a koan for thinking. This is absolutely essential to learn to focus and quiet the mind. Don't expect it to happen miraculously on the second day after you came here. Don't expect it to happen in one period and then every period after that. Sometimes I say Sesshin is an exercise in impermanence. You can have a blissful period and then a period filled with impatience and itching. But we have to learn to focus and quiet the mind. The mind is so powerful and can see into itself when the light is turned around. It's like holding a flashlight steady and turning up its power. Then we can begin to see through the obscuring haze of thoughts to what's actually going on in there. Maybe see if all the activity is actually in there, or where is it? We have all heard of breakthroughs, openings, Kensho experiences. We would all like that to happen. But we can't force it, because that is the house builder again. What we can do is the prep work. Clear the ground of the heart-mind so that it is more likely to happen. When the mind ground is clear and widely open, anything can trigger the turning of the mysterious pivot. Anything. A sudden sound, when I first began studying with Roshi, he gave me the koan. A monk was sitting in the darkness and was awakened by the sound of a key being put down on a table. Even now it gives me shivers. The mysterious pivot can turn through a jolt of pain. There are many koans about monks being struck and having openings. The mysterious pivot can turn at the sight of a falling leaf, not the sight of a falling leaf, the experience of a falling leaf. Or a random word from another room. I'm going to read a little bit from Shodo Roshi's Teishos on the Mumonkan about just such an experience. This involves Master Toksan and Master Ryutan. So Harada Roshi does a beautiful job of filling in a lot of the circumstances under which these things happen. So it begins with Toksan, Tokusan, who was a scholar. He was from the north, and his specialty was the Diamond Sutra. Now I'm going to read from Harada Roshi's words. For Tokusan, the Diamond Sutra was his specialty, yet he still did not have experience of it, only mental familiarity with it. So this is Harada Roshi speaking through a translator, and then that transcript is being written here. So it has the flavor of Harada Roshi, but also the flavor of the translator. Zen from the time of Bodhidharma says there's no teaching in just the words, but Tokusan rejected and fought against that teaching. That teaching had come down from Daruma Daishi, saying that the truth is beyond words and phrases. Tokusan did not agree with this, and he came to Ryotan to prove that he was right. Tokusan was very young at the time of this koan, very sure of himself. He was determined to set right the mistaken view of the south of China, that sutras were not the point. People were saying, you have to have direct experience, not just read about it in the sutras, but Tokusan had studied the sutras completely and was sure that was the correct approach. So Tokusan traveled from his birthplace in the area of Shoku at the source waters of the Yangtze River. He walked many, many days on his mission until he arrived in an area called Reishu, near the flourishing centers of Master Baso in Kosei and Master Sekito Kisen in Konan. He carried all of the volumes of the Diamond Sutra on his back. He walked for days to the south, and being hungry, he decided he better stop for lunch at a tea shop. There's a small lunch that can be ordered in a Chinese tea shop, just a snack for between meals, sometimes a sweet roll or the like. This kind of food is called tenshin, which is written with a small mark next to the word for mind. It's not a whole meal, but an in-between snack. He asked the woman running the tea shop for this light lunch, and she said, "You're a traveling monk. Why do you have so many books to carry around?" To this, Tokusan said, "You're just an old lady. You wouldn't understand, but these are the precious books of the Diamond Sutra, which I translated, and I'm carrying them." To which she said, "I'd like to give you an offering. You know, if I give you an offering, that's good for merit, for me, but first I'd like to ask you a question about this Diamond Sutra." Tokusan said, "Ask anything and I'll answer you." And she said, "In the Diamond Sutra, there's a part that says, the past mind we cannot know because it is already gone. The future mind we can never know because it hasn't come yet. And the present mind we also can't know because as soon as we mention it, it's over with." And so she asked him, with which mind do you read the Diamond Sutra? So Tokusan was completely baffled. And he said, "Oh lady, those aren't your words. Who taught you that?" He had his tail grabbed tight, and the old lady said, "Aha, you can't answer. You need to go over there to the residence of the great master Ryotan and see this for yourself." And so Tokusan went to train with Master Ryotan. Tokusan once called on Ryotan to ask for instructions and stayed until night fell. Tokusan actually wanted to dump all of his ideas on Ryotan. Tokusan actually wanted to dump all of his ideas on Ryotan. Ryotan let him talk and talk and talk and talk as much as he wanted until finally it was pitch black outside, late at night. I'm laughing because when you go in to see Harada Roshi in Sanzen, he just sits there and lets you talk and talk and talk. Sometimes he falls asleep while you're talking. but he always, his answer is always right on. He's taking it in even though he's asleep. Ryotan let him talk and talk and talk and talk as much as he wanted until finally it was pitch black outside, late at night. Tokusan had talked the whole time, and Master Ryotan had just listened. He was not at all concerned. It didn't matter at all to him how much that monk was talking. He just sat there while the monk talked. But it was now late, and Tokusan thought that since he could still talk more tomorrow, it was good to leave. So he got up to leave, but when he went outside, it was completely black. He had no idea even where his lodging was, what direction to go, or how to get there. So he returned inside and told Master Ryotan that he had come back because it was too dark and asked him for a lamp. Ryotan kindly lit a lamp and gave it to Tokusan, who took it and again went to leave. At that very instant, Ryotan blew out the lamp, leaving them again in the pitch darkness. Suddenly, Tokusan understood, an abrupt understanding. When he actually saw that there was no idea where north, south, east, and west was at that moment, Tokusan suddenly understood. The light itself was not the point. The point was not to depend on a light, but to be totally free in every single thing, in every single direction, at all times. A supplementary koan for the koan of Mu says it very clearly. Where there is the deepest darkness and we light one light, where does the darkness go? Actually, the darkness itself, if we look deeply and intensely, we can see even better with our own eyes than if we had a light. We don't need to depend on anything, not even a light. That is what the truth is. So please continue to practice continuously. Close the gaps. Close the gaps. When the wiggle bell rings, when the posture adjustment bell rings, don't interrupt your practice as you adjust your body. During Kinhin, don't allow there to be a gap in your awareness. Be aware of every step. Completely aware, not 30% aware, 110% aware of every step, every breath. If you're doing Kinhin outside, focus on the back of the person in front of you and hold your eyes steady. The eyes are an organ of meditation. Don't let them wander around. Use the light of mind to see into your mind, to let go of house building, of self-building, and ask to see, ask earnestly, ask the help of the ancestors. Ask to see what is behind your mind, behind all of our minds. Ask to see the source of all of the activity of all creation.